All right, well, welcome to part number 3, module number 3. How did that go? By the way, did you do it? Did you do the homework? I know you did because you committed at the beginning you were going to do it. I hope these exercises are awesome for you because it should really be moving you down a path of realizing how to become a little bit more happier. And by doing these exercises and listening to the content, it's really going to make a difference for you. So we're going to move into part number 3. I hope that you enjoyed A Tale of Two Men. Let me just tell you the story real quick of where that came from. So as I started to write the book, I didn't really know what direction that was going to go, the book. I knew I wanted to do a book called Flipping the Gratitude Switch, and you're going to learn exactly what Flipping the Gratitude Switch is, and I'm going to give you the 4-step formula that lets you do it day in and day out simply, and where I guarantee it'll change the trajectory of your life. We're going to talk about that. But as I started the book, one night I was driving back to Utah from California, driving through the night, and I was in the passenger seat. My brother-in-law was driving. And I just had this thought, I started to think about what my life was like before I really started to channel and use gratitude very actively. And I started to think about how it feels now and how different it is. And I just started to sketch down notes. And before I knew it, I felt sort of inspired to write a story. And I just knew from the beginning I should call it A Tale of Two Men. And I knew that it needed to be this example of two men that seem to live very different lives, but it's the same life just viewed through a different lens. And I realized that when I started to write it, I was going to write about me. I was going to write my story. And I just wasn't going to put it in that context, but I knew it so intimately. As I was writing, there's some really sensitive stuff when you read the book. There's some really sensitive stuff that man number 2, the negative one, experiences in relation to how he feels about his kids and wife. And it was really embarrassing for me to write those thoughts and feelings down. I couldn't believe that I ever felt like that. But then it was awesome to look at the flip side and see what my life is like now and my interaction with my wife and kids now that I channel and activate gratitude on a regular basis. And you might have noticed I just used a word. I said activate gratitude. We're going to talk in this section a little bit about that. Activating gratitude. Now, I know that may seem weird because most people, by the way, and I think this is totally false, most people go, oh, gratitude, like just saying thank you. Yeah, but it's so much more than that. I call it activating gratitude because I don't believe, if you were to look up gratitude in the dictionary, guess what you would find? It says that gratitude is a noun. Now, you and I know what a noun is, right? It's a person, place, or thing. Gratitude is not a noun. Not in my world. Gratitude's a verb. It is something you do, not something you just have. Gratitude is something you do. It is not just something you have. And the way you do gratitude, you activate gratitude, the way in the book, I made up a word, I call it verbifying gratitude, because it becomes this thing that you are actively considering and actively doing that actively changes the entire perspective of your life and thereby changes the entire trajectory of your life. So I want to share with you this article, well, not an article, but this, it's important that whenever you do a course and you share stuff with people, it's good to have scientific data to back you up. And I found this in Psychology Today, and I thought it would just be a good place to share it with you right now. And it says this: gratitude, particularly if practiced regularly, all right, can keep you, check this out, healthier, and among other things, help you exercise more, sleep better, and, drum roll please, be happier, right? Move from the 2/3 of Americans that aren't happy to the 1/3 that are. Gratitude, particularly if practiced regularly, can keep you healthier and, among other things, help you exercise more, sleep better, and be happier. Can I just lend my witness to that? Gratitude has changed my life. Gratitude converted me from man number 2 to man number 1. Gratitude took me from being an impoverished slave to my circumstances to an empowered victor who doesn't get controlled by life, but who controls his. It may sound weird, but I'm really thankful for gratitude. And I know that if you practice it regularly and activate it and verbify it and use it and do it more than feel it, that it changes everything. See, here's what activating gratitude can do. Activating gratitude means you will Never have failure again. I love to say this when I go and I speak to high schools and middle schools and also corporate events. I always love to say that I've never experienced failure. Okay? I haven't. You know why? Because in my book, in my playbook, there is no failure. There's only stepping stones to success. Look, a failure means you tried something and it didn't go as planned. But geez, that is hardly a recipe for quote unquote failure. Failure is like this negative word. It's like, oh my gosh, I failed. It didn't work out. No. You know how it should feel? Oh my gosh, I tried and I learned. Isn't that what failure is really about? Trying and learning and continuing to persist. And so gratitude allows you to take this thing that you would call failure, and it allows you to convert it into a form of success, because it now becomes a stepping stone to real success. It becomes something you learned from that failure. And we're going to come back to that in a minute, because part of your homework for this section is going to revolve around that. What else can activating gratitude do? It can turn poverty into prosperity. You know, I touched on this in the last segment. Let me touch on it now. When man number 2, when I was kind of negative Nancy, when I would look at my bank account, I would just look at it for how little it was. It was never enough. But I had this one day, and I remember when I really, in my terminology, flipped the gratitude switch, and I looked at that account as I started to really make my transition to be a happier person and to really use and activate gratitude. I remember looking at my account, and I don't remember what the amount was, but it was significantly less than I would have liked it to be. And I remember looking at it, let's just say for the sake of an argument, there was $24 in the bank account, and that was all that was left. I looked at it and I went, you know, sure, I'm glad it's not 23. And in that moment, I became thankful for the 24. And you know what it did? It changed my entire perspective on it. Now I was just thankful for 24, thankful that it wasn't 23. Can't you do that? If you have 1 penny, can't you be thankful you have none? Thankful that you don't have none. If you have $10 million, but you'd like 20, isn't it great that you've got 10? It's more than 9. It's more than $9,999,999. See, the second you become empowered to be thankful for what you have, you don't have to feel poverty, because you always have more than you otherwise could have. If you had nothing, but you had clothes on your back, and if you had a full mouth of food, that would be more than some have. Can't you be thankful for that? You can turn poverty into prosperity in a moment with gratitude. Isn't that cool? Activating gratitude means you could take a loss or a tragedy and turn it into a new beginning filled with hope. What does that mean? Look, we've all experienced loss, right? We've all been there. But can it also be viewed as a new beginning? Can't there be hope found in tragedy? You know, probably the death that affected me most, and I've had a few in my life, but when I was about 10 or 11 years old, my grandpa passed away, and he and I were really close. I only ever knew 2 of my grandparents, my mom's mom and dad. I never knew my dad's mom and dad. And when Pop, is what I call them, passed away, I remember the last time I saw him, and he was in the hospital, and he was suffering from cancer. He'd lived like 7 years past what he was supposed to live because of cancer. But he couldn't speak, and I remember being in the hospital, and he just tried to say one thing, and it was the last thing he ever tried to say to me. And he tried to say, I love you. And, I'll never forget that day. It's one of those memories that lodges in your brain, it gets tattooed, and it doesn't leave. I was really sad when Pop died. I'd never experienced death. I didn't know what it was like. And, as I look back on that experience, I've learned to be thankful that I could go visit him that last time, that he could say or try to say, I love you. And I look at it as that was the beginning of a new phase of my life, a phase where Pop wasn't around, a phase where I had to learn more on my own, where I had to experience different aspects of life because he wasn't there and I had to deal with this loss. And I began to view it differently, even as a kid, not really understanding what I was doing, that I was flipping the gratitude switch and activating gratitude. I just started to view it as, well, what could be next then? That, you know what, maybe I just be thankful that grandma, I called her Nana, maybe I'm thankful that Nana's still here. And it changed me. I didn't know I was flipping the gratitude switch as a kid, and I was. See, the same thing for you. Tragedy can be catapulted into a richness of hope if you'll activate gratitude and realize it could be a new beginning. Don't focus on the loss. Focus on the next chapter. Activating gratitude means you never have to have a bad day again. I love this one. What if I told you that you never have to have a bad day again? I'm talking like never. I don't care if somebody cuts you off. I don't care if you get in a car accident. I don't care if you walk into, a pane of glass and it shatters. You don't ever have to have a bad day again, ever, ever, ever. I want you to say that right now. Say, I don't ever have to have a bad day again, because you don't. Why? Because you can activate gratitude. Whatever happens, I'm going to teach you how to take whatever happens, regardless of how bad it may seem, and do this little thing inside of a little tiny 4-step formula that will allow you to flip the gratitude switch and take whatever that thing is and catapult it into something new, create something new out of what was, and it will send you on this trajectory of a new feeling, which ultimately becomes a new life. Friends, as we jump into the formula and really go deep, I want you to know that doing all of these things, it's simple. You don't have to feel bad, have failure, be in poverty, be poor. You don't have to have tragedy. You don't have to have a bad day. You get to have the positive of all of those things when you activate gratitude. So, homework for this part, real simple. I want you to keep for the next day, okay? I told you none of the assignments will take you longer than 5 minutes. Even if you did this for the next day, unless you really want to take longer than 5 minutes, all you have to do is commit 5 minutes. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to keep a failure journal, okay? Now, I told you I don't experience failure, only stepping stones to success. This is the exercise of how you figure that out. If you fail today, write it down. Okay? If you try something and it doesn't go well, write it down. And then what I want you to do is the second that you write it down, I want you to look at it and I want you to say, however, even though that happened, what's the positive that resulted out of it? So as an example, let's say that, you tried to wad up a piece of paper and throw it in the wastebasket and you missed, right? That may look as like failure, but I would just view it as cool. I get to keep playing the game. I'm going to keep going until I make one. Now I don't have a series of failures, I have a series of awesome tries until I succeed, right? That could be a tiny failure, you just turn it into success, okay? It's what you focus on, okay? Not what actually is there, but it's actually what you focus on. If you try to go approach your boss about a promotion or a new project and he tells you no, or she tells you no, then you go back, you write down, I tried to get approval for such and such a project, boss said no, and then you go, cool. I get to try a new proposal out, right? Turn it into a positive, turn it into an opportunity as opposed to focusing on the failure. So keep a failure journal for the next day. Don't take longer than 5 minutes to write down your failures, and then write sort of like the opposite of the failure, what you can learn from it, what can happen now that the quote unquote failure existed. That's your assignment before the next module. And in the next module, in the next part, I'm going to take you through my story of how I discovered the gratitude switch, how I discovered what gratitude could really do for me, and the journey from being a miserable, wretched, terrible human being to hopefully becoming a little bit of a better one with gratitude. I'm going to walk you through that process, walk you through that journey, and I'm going to teach you something very powerful about gratitude journaling. In fact, I'm going to teach you why I think gratitude journaling, keeping a gratitude journal, doesn't work. There's a cliffhanger for you. Stay tuned. We're going to hit you on the next part.